Alors, là, il faut que tu cliques sur Zoom. Zoom. Et ensuite...
On voit toujours pas.
Oui. C'est bon, t'as vu? Normalement. C'est bon.
All right.
All right. Is it better now? Tell us about there's any problem. So I was saying the city is that here in front of us, you're going to have the exact opposite of the monumental axis. It is actually basically the prolongation of it. It's the firmament. And they actually envisioned the Champs-Elysées all the way to basically the big blocky white things over there, which is the end of Paris today. Now, this is why it's actually quite interesting, this side, is because it doesn't look like the rest of the city. On the other side, you can see the monuments, the kind of, typical beautiful Parisian buildings and the incredible architecture. Here, you're going to see skyscrapers. And if you've been to Paris before, or if you've seen our skyline, you've noticed that we don't do that at all.
That's true.
This is possible. You have buildings over there that are a bit more than 300 meters, almost basically 1,000 feet high. Why? Because this is outside of the city, and this is where we put our business districts. And this is why in the 60s, 70s, and further on, they've built all the skyscrapers over there. Because this building used to be very, very tall when it was built 200 years ago. This today,
The
compared
one
to
we're
that,
the one we're on now.
the one we're on now, exactly, the arch. All right, let's go around.
So you say the business district is not inside Paris; it's outside the city limits, right?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, the city of Paris is actually much larger than what you see on a metro map. And they used this to have skyscrapers, as any modern city would have. Now, yeah.
And what's the big one we see out there?
You might have heard of this. I think.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. So we're gonna talk about literally the most famous building in the world. I actually read a study. It's apparently the most valuable building in the world. I don't know what it's an Italian basically agency that calculated it was worth about 400 billion euros.
400 billion?
Yeah, and it's Italians saying that. So they say it begrudgingly. So yeah, Colosseum was number 2. They're Italian, they're not either. So the Eiffel Tower you can see over there. You got to remember, we're going to do a tour about it, by the way.
Yes.
At one point. And that tour is scaring me because we have 284 stairs today. There's 669 to get to the second floor over there.
Wow. Yeah, because the Eiffel Tower has just reopened, but not the elevators. You have to climb the stairs. So
Exactly.
669, you said?
Yes. That is a lot of stairs. And that's actually only to the second floor because you can add 1,000 more to get to the top. But that's not open to the public, that staircase. All right. So you could break it at night. Or once a year, they have a race to go all the way there. The record for climbing the 1,700 stairs is a bit above 8 minutes.
8 minutes
Yeah.
to go all the way to the top?
Yeah, they're fit people. They're not like us. So
Tell you that.
absolutely. Now the Eiffel Tower, I remember back in the day, tallest building in the world, and people were absolutely freaked out. People would faint over there because you were working on the sky. This is made of lace, yeah, but that's the reason why it's so high, because it's light. And people would freak out. And remember, this was a massive thing. The people that were living in these neighborhoods hated the idea of a massive metal tower. They were pretty conservative.
They were scared of something specifically?
Oh, they were scared of a lot of things. They were scared of, first of all, the people that would come in and visit it. My God, all the riffraff. These uneducated people that would come up a tower. We don't want that in our neighborhood.
Because it's built in a pretty fancy district.
Exactly. It's actually not a fancy district. It is the richest district in France. Yeah.
Wow.
A third of the people that lived there back when we had a fortune tax used to pay the fortune tax. So that means you earn more than a million a year, euros, not Zimbabwean dollars. That's a lot of cash. Pretty nice.
Decent.
And also because that was twice as big as any building that had been made before, people were freaking out that would just fall and basically crumble down on them, which makes sense.
Has there been any reason to believe that the Eiffel Tower may fall with a big storm, winds, or things like that?
No, it's actually made for the wind. This is why you can see it's actually full of, holes. Structural design. And the idea is the air would actually go through. It's the genius of Eiffel because up to that point, all the tall buildings were hard stone. Remember, from the Egyptians all the way to the Washington Monument, for basically 45 centuries, we just did massive stone for about 150 meters. So that was the genius of Eiffel.
So that's the first one to reach such a height with only metal.
Only metal, double the height of the previous highest monument before.
Wow.
Double the height. So it's completely nuts back in the day. It's something completely unseen, and this is why this became such an iconic thing. Also, it's in Paris.
And would you say the best view to the Eiffel Tower is from here, from the top of the Arc de Triomphe?
So that, my friends, I will tell you a little secret. I love this view for a simple reason. It's very central, and we are basically in the middle of a massive square. We have a view, panoramic view, and everything. Now, every Parisian, like, they have his own favorite boulangerie. They have their own favorite spot to view the city.
That's true. That's true.
So this is why every Parisian you'll ask will give you a different answer. My favorite one, to be fair, for views of Paris is the Arab World Institute, because they have a Lebanese cafe and I can eat Lebanese pastries while watching the city. But that's because I love eating.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've seen the business district.
Absolutely.
We've seen the Eiffel Tower. What else can we point from the?
I would love over there the beautiful with the golden dome. Not bad, right?
So the Golden Dome out there, that's the Invalides.
Exactly. This is the Invalides. I don't know if you can zoom in a bit. Maybe if you can work some magic. Oh, wonderful. So some of you might see the very tiny golden dome over there. My finger is huge. Just a bit there. That golden dome is the Invalides. Now, what is the Invalides? This is technically a kind of hospital, come hostel, come ministry for the vets back in the day. We're in the 17th century. The Sun King Louis XIV is ruling France, and turns out he is doing a lot of war. I mean, we always do a lot of war in France, but he's like pushing it. And
So a lot of vets.
a lot of vets, a lot of people. And to be fair, it's kind of a problem because these guys come back from war, they have massive PTSD, they're hanging out on the streets, and we need to do something with them. So that allows them to basically, with one swoop, solve a ton of problems. A, solve the vets, B, have a central command for his army, and C, do a massive golden thing in a very Baroque style because that's how he rolls.
That's what he loves, yeah.
Exactly.
So this is built before Versailles, after Versailles, during Versailles?
So the big question is, how long do you consider Versailles was built? It's in the same time, but Versailles took much longer because Versailles, if you include the gardens, Versailles is 52 years of building. And Versailles, to be fair, was added on by the further kings. This is why it's a question with multiple answers. So I'm not going to tell you yes or no.
Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this answer from Manuel, which shows his 6 years of experience as a guide. You ask a question that can be answered with one word, and you get a great history lesson.
Yes, this is why I'm single. Now, bad joke aside, this is a very French thing to do. We're not taught how to do simple answers. We're taught to do yes but no or no but yes and give you long flowery answers. Yeah, it's what we do as a nation. We philosoph and we smoke cigarettes.
And we speak a lot.
Exactly, loudly.
So talking about philosopher, artists, and all, we see the hill of Montmartre all the way out there, right?
Absolutely.
Let's
we
try
can
to
see
zoom
Montmartre.
in a little bit. Maybe the quality is not going to be as great, guys. We're sorry for that. But and the image are shaking a little bit because it's extremely windy. Maybe you can hear it through the microphone. But we're doing our best. There's actually quite a great sky. It looks very like post-apocalyptic, or something's gonna happen. A storm, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's been raining quite a bit these past few days. I know I was caught in it yesterday. And this is why I was telling you about the skies. Blue skies are beautiful. They're fun and they're enjoyable. But if you want drama, if you want Paris, you got to go for the clouds.
This is a sky for a revolution.
Or romantic movie. We don't have to do murder today. We can do just dinner and love. It works. Now, yes, we are talking about Montmartre over there. Now, this is the highest point in the city. Okay, disclaimer, I grew up over there, so I might be a bit biased. Now, Montmartre is traditionally, you've done a tour with Laure, I think, of Montmartre.
Exactly, yeah.
And available on my private Paris channel if you want to see it.
Yeah, we actually got to enter the very private art studio where Picasso worked as a young man. Yeah, the Bateau Lavoir. It's not a public place, so it was the first time I've ever entered the place during the tour with Laure, live on YouTube. That was quite a great moment.
Wow, I've never entered it. I'm kind of jealous. Now, the idea is over there. This is the highest point of the city. We're not talking about a city with massive mountains. This is 130 meters. This is about 500 feet-ish. And you have the Sacré-Cœur on top, which is this big, big white church. Remember, this is actually white because of the stone they've used, travertine. It basically self-cleans. Every time it rains, it's basically a kind of limestone. that's gonna erode very slowly. So this is why it stays very white, very bright, and very visible in the sky. Also, it's, remember, made kind of as a middle finger to the rest of the city. They were saying, "Oh, you guys are trying a revolution. You're bloody communists. Well, let's make a massive church where you all died." It's a twisted sense of humor. And these guys, just because everyone was angry, when these guys, the left-wing guys that did the revolution, kind of came back into power, they made a massive street in front of the church so they couldn't do processions all the way to the top of the church. It's a battle of ideas. I think it's kind of fun.
That's great, because it's true. Sometimes we forget that the architecture is built at a certain time to say a certain thing, etc. And with 2,000 years of history, obviously in Paris, there's been different regime with different ideology, etc. So each building really is a witness of the time.
Yeah, and every building is made to be kind of a signature of a show and tell. And this building especially is one. We're gonna talk to you about that when we go down a bit later on, because it is literally the embodiment of, well, the Napoleonic spirit. It's what it does. It's pretty straightforward too when it tells you about it.
So you've raised a great point. Since we are on the Arch of Triomphe, it's hard to show you guys the arch right now. That's why we start with the views. And you said there were 12 avenues, actually.
Absolutely.
And so the most famous one is
Right in front of us.
right in front of us. So what's the name of that one? And say it with a true French accent.
So you might know it as the Champs-Elysées, or in Parisien, if you speak like an angry Parisian as I am, les Champs-Elysées, or just les Champs. Because, you know, we're Parisian, we don't have the time to say all the words. I gotta go get some spritz or coffee or something.
So if you say to someone in Paris, les Champs, they will automatically know you're talking about les Champs-Elysées.
100%. They know about the Champs-Elysées when you say les Champs, because there's no fields. Champs is field. So remember, Champs-Elysées literally means Elysian fields in English. The idea is that comes from the Greek. The Elysian fields back in the day were basically their kind of paradise where the basically heroes would go when they would die. Think of Valhalla, or you know, actual heaven. Simpler.
Yeah, it's heaven for soldiers.
Exactly, heaven for soldiers. And to be fair, this wasn't actually the name in the beginning. For the first, let's say, first half century, this was just a massive place that was there. And then they tried putting the Champs-Elysées around 1700, 1709 was the time they made it official. Now, the thing though is they didn't catch on until the revolution. Until the revolution, a few years afterwards, this is where people actually started using the name a lot. Because, you know, this is an arch dedicated to, well, the heroes. It's dedicated to the military. It's dedicated to the victories. So this is where it makes more sense. Before, Elysian Fields was just an avenue going, well, kind of nowhere. So it takes really, really all its sense when you have all the revolution, all the in the sense that when you're a Brit, for example, you go into British Park, what you're going to have is they try to work with nature. They try to, you know, have paths that are not straight. You have animals, you have wild animals. It's beautiful. The French, everything's under control. Everything is straight. We cut down everything. Every park is straight. Should we go for the gift shop? Yeah.
So we've walked down a few steps. So we're going to tell you what there is inside, because it's not just the rooftop. It's also quite interesting. Voilà. So we are inside the Arc de Triomphe, where the idea of this tiny museum is to celebrate the fallen soldiers.
Absolutely.
And so what we see up there are all the palms, the palms of honor for the soldiers of the First World War.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of them, obviously. And we have here a statue of a French soldier from the First World War. Their nickname was les poilus, which mean hairy men, right?
Absolutely, le poilu. Because you got to remember, in the trenches, you're not exactly, well, very well kept, are you? You're doing your best, but it's kind of hard. And these guys, remember, they were, well, kind of dirty, smelly, hairy, because you don't have to, well, shaving every day. Back at a time where everyone had to be clean cut all the time. Even a mustache, it was always beautifully maintained. Over here, well, when it trenches, less so. And this is interesting because you have a little saying over there that says, "Aux soldats inconnus, la Grande Guerre, hommage venu du monde entier." Now, the idea is that this is dedicated to the unknown soldier. This is a concept that you have in a lot of countries. And this is, again, something we'll see in a bit because there is the tomb of the unknown soldier all the way underneath the arch. So remember that one because we're going to talk about it. Now, same thing over here. On the other side, you just have a little French text to tell you when this was started and when this was finished. Now, if you want to, maybe we can talk about the history of the monument while we go downstairs. So we have something to say.
Yes, exactly. So just briefly to translate the text that you see up there, it says that this monument was started in 1806 in the honor of the Great Army, which was the nickname of the Napoleon's army. And it was stopped for quite a long time, and it restarted in 1823 with a new idea, a new mission for it. It was finished in 1836 under the rule of King Louis Philippe, the last king in France, and he's the one who inaugurated it in 1836. So it did not take 30 years to build the building. It's just that there was a long break in the middle, and it's no longer dedicated to Napoleon, but to all French soldiers. So while we have a little break from the wind, let's see who's here in the comments.
All right, and sorry for the few first minutes, guys, without the sound, but you didn't miss that much. We're just chatting a bit about.
Yeah, we were trying to make the technology work,
so nothing too important. Don't worry about it.
No sound, no sound. Yes, okay. So let's see who's here. The Greenstein are here. Nice to have you again. Amy, hi. Susan, Cindy. Yes, perfect. Now everybody can hear us. That's great. Jim, thanks for being here again. John, our great supporter. Thank you for being here every week. It's really something we enjoy very much. Marie-Hélène also every week. Linda. Whoa, we have 43 people.
Yeah.
And guys,
I know.
Technically, we're not allowed to be more than 20% at a time in the arch
Exactly.
right now with the COVID rules.
I don't think we're even allowed to do this here.
It's not us.
No, different people.
So you were saying, should we model this here?
We can.
And then we will walk downstairs. So the idea with this model here is so when you place, you can actually understand a little bit more its history. Okay, so this is to give you an idea of the size and of the design of the arch. But we're not going to get into details here because we are going to do this live from street level.
Yeah.
But that's what you can find at this floor, including also the gift shop. Obviously, there's always a gift shop, right? And this one's pretty cool, actually. I mean, you have, shirts to say I've been here, but they also have a very decent bookshop within the gift shop.
Yeah, true. Because this gift shop is run by the National Association of Monuments. So, it's a gift shop. They're here to make money, but they're not that basically capitalistic. So they sell you very basically precise. They sell you books that. But it's pretty cool. As far as a gift shop goes, it's a pretty nice one. Limited in space, but nice.
All right, so we're going down all these steps. This is not much, huh? Actually, the largest part of the largest flight of stairs is a spiral one. So we'll show you that. And so here we are, right above the arch.
The people basically were in the middle of the arch, and I'll maybe go on that side so it pans better with the camera. We're literally just above the arch, and they put a cool feature a few years ago. They put a camera. So what you can see is
we're filming a screen right now.
Oh, yes, we're filming a screen. This is a bit meta, but the idea is that you can actually see what's happening right under your feet, all the way down there. And there is a tiny ceremony. The soldiers right now.
Exactly. You can zoom. You made a French flag. And so all the people you see there are soldiers, because this is the tomb of the everyday. The flame on the tomb of the unknown soldier, and that started right after the First World War.
Absolutely. This is started in 1920, and it's been going on for literally a century. Now, The idea is the flame, the whole reviving of the flame is actually ceremonial. It's symbolic because the flame is run by gas, and you could actually throw water on it and it would still go. But it's all about the ceremony, and you have the plaques. You can see the plaques over here on the floor, the kind of bronze metal pieces all around the floor. These are dedicated to all of the wars that have been fought, especially since the MS was put here. So you're gonna have wars that are more or less recent. You can have, for example, the wars that were fought in Vietnam. You're gonna have World War II, obviously. You're gonna have even one for the few soldiers that were sent to Korea, for example. So this is gonna be all the wars basically since World War I. These are the plaques on the floor because they kind of ran out of space on the rest of the monument. So you needed some place to honor these soldiers
so
too.
this is happening every single day.
So basically, yes. Now, depending on the day, it's going to be more or less big. Obviously, if you celebrate V-Day, for example, you're going to have the president come in. You're going to have bigger, let's say, crowds and more. How would you say?
Well, more ceremony.
More ceremony.
Specific days, there's a pretty big ceremony, but on, let's say, regular days, there's still a ceremony, just like the one today with
Exactly.
10%.
It's more of a tiny thing rather than a massive ceremony, but it's done every day so that the memory is kept alive, and it's run by volunteer groups. So,
But they are all soldiers.
yes and no. So like they're linked to soldiers, but they're not necessarily soldiers. The same way you'd have, I know, the Daughters of the American Revolution in the U.S. They're not soldiers, but they're going to be people that are linked to vets, for example.
Okay.
Because it's very, all the vets from World War I are not here anymore, sadly. But yeah, it's linked to, but not necessarily soldiers. You're going to see a bit of everything.
So what do we see now?
So now, not for the faint of the heart, we are going to go down the 284 steps.
Wow.
Well,
going down is not that hard.
it's not that hard.
And we're still young men. All right. So,
Well, that's what I've heard.
well, yeah. No. How old are you, by the way?
I am 32. I'm not that old, but I'm not that young anymore. My nephews remind me I'm an old man regularly because they're teenagers. So for them, I'm the oldest thing ever. Well,
34. Well, I mean, we still have a lot of tours to give before we retire. Hopefully, when you guys are back.
yeah, we'll be here. No, you've done more. You're married. You have a child. You've done things. I I have not been that productive.
Well, I'll tell you how it works.
Thank you for the lesson. Is there a live on this?
Yeah, but we will edit this part.
Okay.
It's walking down the steps that makes us say silly things.
Yes. Well, not just that, but for me at least. Now, I was telling you about the history of the building. Remember, this is not made for mass tourism. This is not made for massive crowds. This was made to be accessible, but it wasn't made to be seen by millions of people. So this is why the staircase is actually kind of narrow. Think of churches, if you visited old churches in Europe, how the staircases are pretty narrow. This is kind of the same idea. Now, I was telling you about the history of the building. We said it took 30 years to build. Why did it take 30 years to build? It's because they stopped in the middle, lost funding. France was a bit of a mess. Remember, the period, basically late 18th, beginning of the 19th century, is a very complicated period for France. We switch governments basically every 2 weeks, and we try every formula that there is available. We go from universal republic to absolute monarchies. We try everything and see what sticks to the wall. Turns out, kind of everything sticks to the wall. Now, I told you that because Napoleon started building this in 1806, but it wasn't his first one. Napoleon actually started with another arch. If you have been to the Louvre, you might see in front of the big pyramid, the big glass pyramid, there is an arch. L'Arc de Triomphe, also called the Arc de Triomphe, but it's called the Arc de Triomphe of the carousel, because it's on the carousel of the Louvre. Now,
It's much smaller, right?
it is much smaller. It's only 20 meters, so it's about, let's say, actually less than half. It's about like, 40% of this one. So it's about like 65 feet, 70 feet. And Napoleon liked it quite a bit. Well, maybe you could film this. That would be pretty nice. So here, they're doing the ceremony, and let's try to get a bit closer, maybe.
Ce monument a été magnifié 3 ans plus tard par une flamme. C'est la flamme du souvenir.
All right, so you guys can hear
The
the little speech they're giving about the unknown soldier.
Car il faut aussi chercher à comprendre le sens de ces sacrifices.
So you're gonna have vets. You're also gonna have people from the Préfecture de Police, so the basically police force of Paris, and you're also gonna have a few volunteers from a few associations.
Avec ses descriptions, son cortège de blessés, ses veuves de guerre et ses orphelins qui portaient et continuent de porter le fruit de la victoire dans leur cœur, leur corps et leur âme. Afin que nous comprenions qu'aucune souffrance des vaines sur le but et partagé par tout un peuple, cette flamme a dépassé le symbole de la fraternité d'armes pour devenir désormais la flamme de la nation.
All right, we are going to take a little step back and go on to the square itself. Is it raining?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's been raining while we were going down the stairs.
It is still raining. It is still very much
Oh, yeah.
raining. It's still very much raining. I have an umbrella. Let's go back underneath for a second, and I'll get the umbrella out, and we're gonna make this tour happen.
This is the beauty of live tours. We have tons of wind, and it starts to be raining. So while Manu is looking for his umbrella, I'm going to show you just a little bit the what there is on the roof of the arch, because actually it is full of name of generals of the Napoleon army and also of the French Revolution's War, and as well as the name of the cities or the location where the biggest battles have happened. And so it's pretty hard for us guides to do a tour here, because you guys can pick any name on this wall and ask us, you know, who was this general and who was this one. So we're not going to play this game today, but it's actually quite a tricky place for that. But it is to show you the excessive number of wars that were fought by the French when we decided to not have a king anymore, and when the rest of Europe actually united against France to re-establish on the throne the royal family. So this is also why this Arch of Triumph is a very symbolic place, because it was dreamed by an emperor,
Absolutely.
built by a king, and it's mostly celebrating. It is mostly celebrated by the French Republic.
Absolutely.
So 3 different regimes, completely different regimes, of course.
With opposed, basically. ideas of
Opposed,
France,
that were fighting one another, are using the same place, because the idea is that no matter the regime, we all agree on the fact that we are honoring the fallen who fought for their country.
Absolutely.
So
There's a French unity.
So it's not as much as a political building, it is more a national building.
Absolutely. It's a building dedicated to the wars that have made France what it is today. And this is what's interesting, because this building, remember, was made to celebrate sometimes war against kings, but it was made by a king. So this is why it's very, very interesting, as you said.
Yeah.
You can take that off, right? Or you can
I think we're allowed to take out our masks, so you can recognize us.
yes,
All right. I think it will be a little bit easier for us.
comprehension.
So we're going to go down underneath the arch now,
Absolutely.
because you cannot cross the plaza on where it's located, La Place de l'Étoile, the Star
Square.
Plaza. Yeah.
I mean, you can try, but
But the cars never stop.
exactly. I enjoy being alive, so I will not do so.
Wow. Then I will accompany you in enjoying
and
being,
being
alive.
alive.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That is too kind of you. So we question asking, what is the best unknown monument that you can see in Paris? Well, unknown, strong term, because this is a city of 12 million people, so everything is kind of they have ones. That's already of the control.
Yep. Actually, while we are passing by, we see here the different Parisian monuments, and I'd like to point out this one here, which is located on the opposite side of Paris from the Arc of Triomphe. It is known as the Château de Vincennes. I'm going to film the title, guys, so you can write it down for your next visit. And the Château de Vincennes, we can reach it by the metro.
You can actually take the suburban train from here. It's literally 50 minutes. I live 10 minutes away from it. My school is next to it. So again, I love this place.
And it's not on the tourist map, is it?
Absolutely not. This place is usually completely empty, and it's just been renovated too. It's just been remade. It's absolutely incredible. It's a medieval fort. It's a medieval fort that's been turned into a castle. It's pristine, and it's in the middle of the city. On a planète beau. C'est vrai qu'on s'est un peu fermé.
On va faire un tour.
On va taper ça. On voit la face de madame.
Let's.
Est-ce qu'on a du réseau?
Ouais. Tu peux regarder sur ton téléphone si ça remarche.
Là, je pense.
All right. Sorry, guys. I think we were disconnected because we are well in a tunnel. So you know, it's once again the joy of a live tour. But the light is there at the end of the tunnel. The light.
Literally so.
Literally so. Exactly.
The light has come again.
And so, where are we going to exit? Because people who want to visit the Arc of Triomphe, they have to do the exact same way, but reverse.
Absolutely.
So we are actually walking the steps and reaching
the Champs, as the Parisians say, the Champs-Elysées. We are exiting on what we call the most beautiful avenue in the world.
Yeah.
I know. Did we tell you that Parisians are very modest? One of our main qualities?
Yeah, because we don't say the most beautiful avenue in the universe. Because,
just the world. We haven't seen Mars yet. We'll talk about it. It might be a bit of a misnomer, but it is a beautiful place, and they're going to change it. There's actually right now
Mars or
well, also there's Elon Musk. But that joke aside, they are about to launch a consultation with the general public to change the avenue for the Olympic Games. Make it.
And maybe you'll get rid of cars.
That's the thing. They're saying they might make it at least partly pedestrian, but we're going to talk about that. Now,
today, would you say that this is a busy day in terms of traffic? Not much, huh?
It's not much at all. It looks pretty busy, but this is nothing because there's no bumper-to-bumper traffic. I haven't seen anyone
angry,
flipping the bird, yelling. So this is actually quite nice.
But so, guys, what's really important is never cross this plaza walking. Always take the staircase there, and with the tunnel, you will end up right here. And so you can then enter the building, walk all the way to the top, get up there, which is where we started the tour, and then you walk down the other way, take the tunnel again, and you are safe back in the streets of Paris.
Absolutely. So one quick thing before we get to explore the Champs-Elysées is, first of all, I wanted to talk about arches. Why the arches everywhere all the time? Now, arches are a way to show off, or as young people would say, flexing. Now, yes.
You see, you're still young.
Kind of. I have nephews, I told you. Now, this is very important because if you are a great leader and you have won something, you want people to remember it. This is something that some of you that have been to Rome especially would have seen. Trajan's column. Hey, he invades what is today modern Romania. That was hard, that was expensive, there's a lot of gold. I'm going to make myself a column. Napoleon loved the Romans. This is why we have a kind of copy of this column, the Vendôme column, exactly, which is actually not that far.
And so right here,
we have said Napoleon.
Exactly. So that is a statue of Napoleon, but dressed with a toga, as if he were a Roman emperor.
This is why his emblem is going to be the eagle. Yeah, sure, the beast, but the eagle, because the eagle is Romans. This is why this guy is going to be pictured all the time with togas and sandals. This is why he's going to have basically a crown, a wreath on top of his head. So all of this is recuperation of the Roman imagery. And the guys that created the idea of the Arc of Triumph, is the Romans, because as a general, you'd have a triumph. When you came back from a victorious campaign, the city the basically kingdom slash republic slash empire, depending on when, would throw you a massive party at Triumph. And here, that's the same idea.
And the other statue we see there, so that's not Napoleon.
Nope, that would be the victory.
That, yeah. So, because guys, remember, the arch was desired by Napoleon, but eventually it was built under a monarchy. And the king who was ruling at the time, he had fought for the French Revolution while he was a young man. So what we see here is actually the statue that represents France or French people fighting against all the kingdoms united against France during the French Revolution. So there are various statues because, once again, this is a monument dedicated to France, and many regimes have passed, but the arch has always survived.
So we've had a very useful commentary from Lachlan.
Someone says that we are funny.
Well, not that one. I told you, we're modest, Parisian. That the navette to the Louis Vuitton Foundation leaves from here.
That's true.
Remember when I talked in the beginning about the big park, the big woods? This is where the Louis Vuitton Foundation, modern art, massive foundation, actually pretty great. But
so it's not a Vuitton shop, it's a modern art center.
Exactly.
Which was donated to the city, or that is run by the company
LVMH, by the billionaire that basically owns LVMH, that owns a lot of things. Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, all the brands.
Okay.
If you want Louis Vuitton, there's actually a massive Louis Vuitton store a bit down the avenue.
Okay. But so the one you're talking about is a really cool art center, which is located in the woods of Boulogne, which was not so close from here. We've seen it at the beginning. It was
absolutely. It's quite far away.
Almost a mile and a half.
Yeah, and there's no transportation, no roads over there. So that's the wedding. All right. All right. So look at this.
Manu has left his car right there.
Absolutely.
So we're not going a driving tour. We're going.
No, for now we're not. We're not going to do that. But I love weddings. I love people. They're happy. They're dressed up. That dude is stylish. Yeah. He's got style. Hold up, watch out. Okay, so there always was an accident with the electric kick scooter. Welcome to Paris. So tonight, a lot of people are going to fall drunk on those.
But that's telling us that, you know, the Champs-Elysées is the place you go when you want to celebrate.
Absolutely. So the Champs-Elysées is the place the French people go to celebrate. Some of you are aware, or might not be, and just in case I repeat it, that we are world champions in soccer. 2 stars! Yes. I literally flew back to see the game. Now, the idea is that once we had won the game, it's not a war, it's soccer, it's kind of the same thing, but, you know, less violent-ish. And everyone flocked to the Champs-Elysées. That was the first reflex everyone had, go to the Champs-Elysées. This is this 2-kilometer avenue that goes from the arch over there all the way to Concorde Square, where you have the big obelisk. This is our main celebratory area, basically. Think of Fifth Avenue, New York. It is kind of the same thing. Massive avenue going through the city, very famous brand, a lot of prestige around the world, lots of flagship stores, many H&Ms, obviously, it happens. But this is where you do ticket parades. And here, this is where the bus with the French players went down. And this is where you literally had, in 98, almost 2 million people on the avenue. This is insane. Almost 2 million people, yeah. And this time we had 1 million-ish on that day. I was part of them. And it was literally going further down the avenue. You had about 4 kilometers because it went down on Rue de Rivoli. So you had more than 2 miles of people basically shoulder to shoulder.
And the thing is that the French president lives down the avenue. And so the players were passing here, waving hello to the fans. But then they were having a party with the French president.
Yeah, that was actually a massive scandal because they went down the avenue very fast.
Like 15 minutes?
Like 15 minutes. Yeah. Well, in 98, they stayed like 3 hours. They spent a lot of time. They went there to see the president. So we didn't get to see them that much.
But still, we're world champions. And twice in our lifetime.
Exactly. This twice in our lifetime.
Which is a very, short period of time, knowing that we're very young.
Exactly.
So you were mentioning flagship stores. This is one of them?
Absolutely. So this is Cartier, or Cartier in French. How do you know it's a flagship store? The guys at the entrance that do security are better dressed than I'm at a wedding. That's kind of the idea. And this is a very, very...
And they're going to kick us out.
Oh, yeah, they're going to kick us out.
Yeah, because we're filming the.
We're filming this, and now this is what's very interesting. Every French shop that displays anything in the storefront. So you can see over here watches, you can see rings, you can see earrings.
15,100 euros.
Just for the earrings. And that is actually a very good point. By law, the French stores are obligated to display the prices of everything they show to you on the outside, except for art and antiques. And these guys have kind of a loophole. They're saying that what they're making is not jewelry, it's not an object, it's art. So they don't have to display the prices.
So when they do display the prices, it's because it's something that is not expensive enough to be considered art, or sometimes they do show prices. Or
Sometimes they do.
Tell guys like us, please do not enter the shop. You don't have the coins for that.
Absolutely. Remember the expression? If you have to ask for the price, you're too poor. That is literally it. And here, this is a different kind of flagship. So in Paris, the jewelers will have two flagship stores. One on the Champs-Elysées, the kind of like more mainstream one, and the one on Vendôme Square.
Yeah, that's the chic.
That's the chic one, the VIP, exactly, with like a floor dedicated to VIP shoppers. So here, if you want a pen, we're at Montblanc, and the pen starts at a cool 835 euros. Well,
with the ink, or is the ink extra?
Oh no, the ink is extra.
Okay.
I mean, come on. Who do you think we are?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm being cheap. It's a rough year for
for
tour guides.
Exactly. We're down to Bix basically. I don't write anymore. I just send pigeons. Now we are going down to Champs-Elysées. The Champs-Elysées, I was saying that it might change pretty soon. Why so? Obviously, it's changed a bit since, well, the whole coronavirus thing. You might have heard of it. And
yeah, because I've read while we were preparing this tour that there are usually per day 300,000 people walking up and down this avenue.
Absolutely. It's a massive amount of people. And out of the 300,000 people, only 5% are Parisians. So on any given day before the whole Corona thing, remember that only 5% of locals would be going up and down the avenue. So this is why...
That's why it feels it's almost empty today.
Exactly. Because right now there's only locals. This is a Saturday afternoon. Remember, this is like peak time. This is kind of empty.
June, start of the summer vacation.
Yeah. And most of the people we see are either kids and families or teenagers.
Yeah.
So this is why they want to change the avenue. What they want to do is make it more pedestrian. Oh, watch out. The kid just fell in front of us.
He's fine.
He'll be fine. And what they want to do is actually make it more pedestrian and change the shops you're going to have. Because you're going to have a lot of flagship shops, but you're also going to have less gourmet options.
Let's see what you're talking about.
Yes. A French restaurant, gourmet restaurant called McDonald's. Yes. Started by Jean-Pierre MacDonald back in the 17th century. Or not.
Yeah, he had Scottish relatives. No, guys, there's actually something that is quite specific with this McDonald's, besides the fact that it is one of the most visited, restaurants in the whole avenue and in the whole city of Paris. But because it is located on the Champs-Elysées, you cannot see the golden arches. They cannot use the same signs and show off the place in the exact same way they would on a regular street, because this street is protected.
Absolutely. So there's two reasons for that. First of all, there is a protection from the basically Architectes de France, Architectes de Bâtiment de France. So basically, we have an organization of architects that is monitoring the traditional avenues of Paris, like the Champs-Elysées, and they're giving the approval or not to changing the buildings and changing the avenue. So for example, McDonald's to open could not put a massive yellow arch. Now there's also McDonald's is pretty smart. They do a lot of research, and when they get into a place, they tend to adapt to the market. Like there is McDonald's just next to the Vatican. It's actually technically within Rome and not the Vatican. There's no sign of it being a McDonald's. Yet it works fantastic. You go in India, they don't sell beef and the burgers. So these guys adapt. My dad's from Morocco. You go to McDonald's in Morocco, they have a Mac Arabia, which was interesting.
Yeah, sounds yummy.
It was there.
You seem to know a lot about Rome. How's that?
I used to live in Rome, and this is why if you ever want to do a Roman Paris tour, I'm here. I used to live in Rome, so I learned Italian, and I learned everything about the Romans. And I love the Romans for a simple reason. They're kind of your trashy cousin that made it. You know, the treasure cousin that somehow works for NASA as an engineer? That's the Romans. We're going to feed people to lions and make roads that last two millennia.
That is just the perfect way to put it. I would have never thought of it, but I may steal that joke from you.
Oh, please do, please do. It's, well, if you enjoy the joke, send me a little message and yeah, just tell me where you use it. Now,
Well, so now in front of us is maybe one of the most beautiful building on the avenue, because this has been an avenue for a little bit more than 200 years. So the architecture can vary very much from a place to the next. And sorry guys, because between the traffic and the concert behind us. And so right now, this building you see here is the flag agency for the bank HSBC. But it was originally built for a train company. It was called the Compagnie des Wagons-Lits. Back in the days where you could sleep in the train, take an overnight ride, or maybe 2, 3, 4 days, you know, like the Orient Express. They were highly well-made train, very luxurious trains that people would take. And you would come here on the Champs-Elysées to buy your tickets. And this kind of transportation has lost its prestige when the plane industry started.
absolutely.
And obviously people wanted to go faster. So it was then sold. And I remember the first time I visited Paris, it was back in 1995. And here on this avenue, it was full of airline companies that had their shops here, because it was the great, you know, the big thing. And it's also the first avenue where we had car shops, and there's still a few car shops,
Showrooms, a lot of
a
showrooms.
lot of showrooms. The first cinemas, the first big cabaret, etc. So if you want to say you've made it in an industry, you buy or rent a shop on the Champs-Elysées. And so when you look at other buildings like the one here, it is actually full of companies that maybe have a tiny office, maybe a one-person office, but just to have the post address on the Champs-Elysées.
Yeah, the address carries a lot of prestige, and still today it's used by a lot of companies to put on their perfumes or their clothing. They say Avenue des Champs-Elysées as an address. This is a place that's changed a lot through time. When it opened before the revolution, it was actually kind of seedy. It was a place where you wouldn't want to hang out because it was full of bandits and ladies of the night. And what happened is that, okay, so this is, so concerts, traffic, squad cars.
That's a lot of police. Maybe we did something wrong in the arch.
Exactly, they're coming for us.
Yeah. We're hiding guys behind a tree, so that's a lot of police for just two
Or two people, yeah.
for two people.
We're not even that dangerous. Okay, so yeah, I was saying lots of riffraff before the French Revolution, and after that, it's going to become a kind of promenade, and then in the 20th century, it becomes a place where you come and show off. 19th century, late 19th, after Napoleon III, 20th century, you come over here, you show your new car, with or without an engine, depending on the era. You show your new dresses. You come at one of the many expensive cafes like the Fouquet's over there. So we're going to zoom in. The red cafe over there, the red storefront, is the Fouquet's. It's an extremely expensive cafe. This is where Sarkozy came and celebrated his victory when he became president. Absolutely, almost 15 years ago. So it's an extremely famous, in French you say, oh, you're going to the Fouquet's. It's very overrated.
It means you are very, very wealthy.
Exactly.
And a little bit show off too.
Oh, very much blingy. And this is why you have over there, for example, a cinema. This avenue is full of cinemas. I used to come here when I was a kid a lot. You used to have a few clubs even. The Lido is now very famous for its cabaret, like the Moulin Rouge, for example. But it used to have actual discos.
It's part of the top of the top 3, right?
Absolutely. It's one of the main cabarets of the city. And it's interesting.
It's called, once again?
The Lido. Lido. It's not a swimming pool. It's called a Lido in French.
Lido.
Exactly, Lido. There used to be the Queen next door, which was a massive gay club. There used to be quite a few gay clubs around the neighborhood. They're all gone. They cannot afford the rent anymore. But yeah, the neighborhood has changed a lot.
So shows have started again in, no, I'm not sure. Yeah, they may have restarted shows at the Moulin Rouge. And, no, it's not. Sorry.
Still closed.
No,
Cinema's open.
cinemas have reopened, but just one seat out of two can be sold, and for clubs, not yet. But the Lido, if you guys are coming back to Paris and you've been to the Moulin Rouge, the Lido is the other experience.
Exactly.
I mean, the Moulin Rouge, it's in Montmartre, which is more the bohemian side, more, anything can happen. While the Lido is the very chic one on the most famous avenue.
Yeah, this is literally called in French neighborhood that starts just over there on the other side of the street. This is called the Golden Triangle. It's extremely, extremely expensive, as you can imagine. It's called the Golden Triangle. And this is where you're going to have, as you said earlier, a lot of companies that buy one tiny post box or one tiny office.
Just to say you're there.
Absolutely. And this is the Champs-Elysées. Now it's been going up a bit, but you got to remember that about 10 years ago, there were only 80 physical people living on the Champs-Elysées.
Wow.
Yeah. Now it's come back up again a bit, but at one point, there was almost no one living here for real, like people that actually had an apartment with the Champs-Elysées address. Because people were living literally on side streets and the other side of the building, which is not the Champs-Elysées, because it's full of parallel streets.
Okay.
But at one point, almost no one lived here anymore.
So today, what are the businesses we see here the most? The big international chains. We've seen a McDonald's. We've seen a HSBC bank. Now we have one of the, it's quite new, right? The Apple store here.
Yeah, the Apple Store has been here for about 2 years, I think. Now, exactly, the Champs-Élysées, this is why the Fifth Avenue comparison is a pretty good one. You're going to have a lot of flagship stores. So there's still obviously a few cafes, and there's a few tinier stores, but they're mostly in the streets surrounding it. Here, you need the financial, basically, power to, like Apple, buy a building and not only basically make it a store, but also have some offices. Nike.
And it's the same for the Louis Vuitton.
Absolutely. Oh, do you want to go to Louis Vuitton? They won't let us in.
No, they won't let us in. We'll check them out from the other side of the street.
Beautiful Art Deco building, incredible building.
Yeah. So the whole building is a Louis Vuitton store.
Well, kind of ish. The basically main floors you can see from here are Louis Vuitton, and the rest is actually offices. It's rented out.
Okay.
So it's kind of a mix because their headquarters are actually not here.
So that's the place where if you have a very wealthy client who wants to spend way more than we will ever, you can have them here and, see the collections they want, etc., etc.
As usual, I'm not going to give you a clear answer because that's how I roll. Depends on what your client is. If you're looking at clients that have a lot of disposable income, but they're kind of flashy, this is where you're going to bring them because this store is all about their showing off. So typically, you're going to have a lot of clients, for example, from the Middle East, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, lots of clients from Russia, people that want to show the wealth, that want to show off and be visible. Now, the old money, because this is interesting, and we have nouveau riche in English, which is a French expression, nouveau riche, literally new rich, and we also have old money in English, but we don't have an old money in French.
That's true.
Old money is just money in French.
That is, I never thought about it.
I have thought about it a lot. I'm broke.
We say nouveau riche, but we don't have a word to say old money.
Absolutely. And this is why it's very interesting because if you have a lot of disposable income and you want to be classy, you actually go to older French neighborhoods like Saint-Germain, for example, Saint-Germain, or you go to the Vendôme Square. And over there, you can actually see the difference in how the products are sold. Here, you're going to have Louis Vuitton branding absolutely everywhere. And they're going to sell you clothes and bags, so on and so forth, with a lot of logos on everything. So it's visible that you have a Vuitton. Now, on the other stores, the logos will be very tiny. And the store, except for Louis Vuitton logo on top, you might even not know that it's a Louis Vuitton store.
So that is to say that old money does not show it has money, while new money wants to tell everyone, well, I've made it.
Kind of. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but this is how the French bourgeoisie rolls. Because remember, the French bourgeoisie, for the last 200 years, yeah, they've had troubling times. These guys, they've been through revolutions. So they've realized that showing your money could be a problem. So they've learned to be rich, but discreet about it. Le charme discret de la bourgeoisie, the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie. A great movie by Buñuel, by the way.
That's true.
If you have 2 hours to kill, an amazing movie.
But if we look at the stores now, it doesn't seem to be as chic as it was on the upper side of the avenue. I mean, Alain Flelou, guys, probably you don't know, but he's a famous French glass
Yeah, he
glass
sells
maker.
glasses. Yeah,
but for quite cheap price, right?
it's like Steak Savers if you're British.
Marionneau, they have, it's a chain, it's a big chain for fragrance and cologne.
It's the
perfumes.
other French Sephora.
It's the other French Sephora. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true. So it's not specifically chic, even though it's by perfume. Yves Rocher is not too bad, but I mean it's not like Cartier or Vuitton. So
No.
now we're entering the part of the avenue which is a little bit more mainstream, where you and I we could afford items.
Exactly. So the avenue, like a lot of places, there's more desirable places. So the top of the avenue close to the arch, and the absolute bottom over there close to the beautiful walkable Champs-Elysées and the Concorde. This is kind of the middle part of the avenue where it's, I'm not gonna say less classy because there's still a lot of big stores, but it's a bit less upscale. Let's put it this way. And here you can see the Champs-Elysées is still popular with the locals because they can come and buy perfumes, for example. You're gonna have a Zara. Yeah, you're gonna have H&Ms. So it is still an address. Yet what you're gonna have a very visible Lamborghini over there. That, remember, in Paris, when you see a big car, traditionally it's a car you rent. Yeah, remember, the rich French people drive a black Volvo. They don't drive loud and red. You don't want to show off. It's not classy.
So these cars here, the Ferraris or Lamborghini, they're here for rent.
Absolutely. You can rent them. Traditionally, it's 99 euros for 5 or 10 minutes. So you rent them, go around the neighborhood.
Do you have your driving license on you?
I'm actually passing my exam in a month and a half.
Wow.
I know. I'm not saying I'm getting it.
At 32, it was time.
Yeah, I'm very Parisian. I know how to drive. I just legally cannot do it. And
we don't have masks anymore. So.
On the right, this is what I was saying about Nike. Nike's actually, they've bought the whole thing. I mean, we can cross. There's not much to see for Nike, but they've bought the whole building. You can see, you can see that you will see in a second. They bought the whole building in front of us. Nike, yeah, they're gonna make a massive thing. They're actually using this for offices too. They spent a ton of cash on it. So
they rent, or they bought
the whole thing. And Nike already has presence through the PSG team. PSG has a massive store down the avenue, and PSG and Nike basically are the big thing in France. So Adidas has the Marseille team, and Paris has Nike. So this is kind of like the big fight they're doing. But Paris being more popular than Marseille at the moment, Nike's winning for now.
Yeah, Paris is winning all the titles in the National League.
I know, don't tell me about it.
You're not a Paris fan?
I am.
Ah.
I am. But I don't care about the titles anymore. I just want to win the Champions League, and this year is not. Yeah. Anyway, let's not talk about that. Life is depressing enough already.
Guys, I'm sure you are all really interested in our soccer conversation.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
We're going to switch to something else. I wanted actually to show you a plaque on this wall. Now it's WeWork. WeWork is a chain of offices, co-working spaces, exactly. But the Champs-Elysées was and still is a place where important people work or have lived. And on this one, what it says is that on this precise location, Thomas Jefferson, that you guys know more than we do, as a minister of the United States, like ambassador in France, and then as a president of the US, he has resided in this building. So that's to tell you that the Champs-Elysées have always been a place of very, very high importance, because obviously you would not have the American president stay in a so-so neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas Jefferson wouldn't settle down for, the ghetto. So he did the Champs-Elysées. And we had a pretty good question on the chat about what's the general attitude of the Parisians towards the Champs-Elysées. And I think for now it depends on whether you're Parisian, like living in a kind of fancy-ish neighborhood in the center, or if you're like in the suburbs. If you are like a traditional, let's say pretentious Parisian, you are despising the Champs-Elysées. You're like, it's a big avenue, it's full of people, it's chains, it's wealth. So people don't really come here. When I was a teenager, I wanted to come here because I needed something. The shops are open till midnight, and I needed something at like 11 p.m., like a flash drive or something for university, and I'd come here.
And they had a huge Virgin megastore where you could listen to records for free.
Yeah, and you just come here and I'd read books and like I'd read comics for like 3 hours. No one would kick me out. But for like the hardcore Parisians, this is a place you don't want to come to. This is again like
It's too commercial.
yeah, it's kind of like Times Square. You wouldn't come here. As for the people living further down in the suburbs, this is the place you come, and you know it's your one time a week you go to Paris, and you come in one of the restaurants, you come and buy an ice cream, and you go along, and it's the Champs-Elysées. So there's a dual attitude towards the Champs-Elysées, depending on whether you're kind of like hardcore central Parisian or if you live in the suburbs.
Yeah, like most famous or touristy place. Well, this is not a museum, so you would not come for this. But it's kind of the same. When you have a lot of Parisians who say, "Well, the Eiffel Tower, I'll go next week, I'll go next month, I'll go next year. It's too busy, too busy." And actually, well, you know, if it's busy, it's because there are plenty of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
You wanna go on this?
We could go on a swing. Come on, let's go on a swing. All right. So because we're 4 years old, we're gonna go on a swing. Welcome to Paris. So I had another pretty good question. Microphone is a bit up. So I had a pretty good question about where the fashion shows held. There's no specific address. These guys rent places for every show. They've rented the Louvre, they've rented the Pantheon, they've rented part of the Champs-Elysées. It changes. There's no special spot. They rent places every year to hold their fashion shows. They're actually saying that they might do less and less fashion shows because they're extremely expensive. And also with like the pandemic and everything, they might cut down. Because remember, they might do it, but online or like less, let's say, fancy forms. Because you got to hold a few a year, and that's a pretty massive budget. So unless you're a massive fashion house, like Balenciaga or Dior, it's a budget for something that now doesn't communicate as well as the internet and social network. Oh, Pierre Hermé.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about? You guys, I've heard about Pierre Hermé. He's the god of macaron. Let's see if we can have a peek. Bonjour. It's just guys to see a little bit what we're talking about. This is the Mecca of pastry. I mean, you've heard about it on last week's tour with Lola and Marie, but Pierre Hermé has opened this massive store, and it's a co-branded because it's Pierre Hermé and Occitane. I think you guys in America have this now.
Yeah, it's a pretty massive chain over there. And look, they sell products featuring, you have like hand lotion and macaron, you know, just in case.
It says it is sold every 3 seconds. Wow.
I mean, it's useful if you want to buy gifts and you're not sure if they like beauty products or food.
Yeah, that's true, because very often we are asked as guides where to buy gifts, what to bring, and you know, a combination of macaron and cream from you know, hand cream
And lotion, yeah.
and lotion, yeah, would be, this is quite a good idea.
Yeah. Only one thing, if you plan on buying macaron as a gift, I would suggest that they are given with a maximum of like 4 days. Why so? Because the macaron, they're not getting stale, they're getting a bit hard. So you can keep them, actually, if you make a macaron, you never eat them on the same day. You traditionally have to wait a day to eat them.
And you cannot use the lotion to keep it moist.
No, I mean, unless you like the rich taste of lotion. And the idea is that a macaron, you can keep it for like 3-4 days. After that, it starts losing its texture. Like the taste is gonna be all right. It's not gonna spoil because there's no moisture in it, basically. It's no water, it's just sugar. But you wanna, if you want to offer it, if you want to give it to someone, buy it on the day you leave or the day before, and it has to be eaten pretty fast. So don't buy a box of 24, buy a tiny box.
Unless you want to share it with us, and that is fine. But it's true, 24 macarons in a row, that will be quite a lot.
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying I haven't done it, but you know, not the best idea. So we're getting closer to the end of the paved Champs-Elysées.
Yep. We're getting close to the end. We've actually selected a place where we will finish this tour. It's a house that was built by a family known as Guerlain.
Yeah.
They were fragrance and perfume makers. And in the early 1900s, they decided to build a house, a whole building where they will have a place to live for the family, but also office and a flagship store. And I think that summarized very well this idea of the Champs-Elysées, which is a place where you go to establish yourself once you've made it, because it's always been very expensive, where also a place where you go to say you've made it. And it's a combination of shops, but also a place where you can welcome your favorite clients, guests, etc.
Absolutely. So you did everything at the same time. By the way, if you have any question, guys, now is a good time. And look at this beautiful, again, very kind of like turn of the century Art Nouveau, Art Deco building.
Yeah.
Incredible, with a lot of fer forgé, which is in English forged iron, wrought iron, the same material they've used on the Eiffel Tower, for example, or the metro entrances back in the day. And with this color, this kind of green that reminds you of the flower market in Paris next to Notre Dame. This is a very popular color in Paris. Again, color combinations. This is why I was saying earlier, I don't know if that was something you could hear or not with the microphone, but Paris is a city where the sky is gray pretty often, and you can see the city, the streets themselves, everything is made to go with the gray skies. This is why you have a lot of green. This is why you have a lot of beige, because these are colors that go really, really well. You cannot have the oranges or the reds you'd have in Italy, for example. That would never work with that kind of sky. What you gotta have is, again, these beige, these greens. So this is a very Parisian building.
Yeah.
Again.
And yeah, it's true. And it's mixing the old and the new, because we see these faces sculpted in the stone, which are called mascarons, which is pretty old-fashioned for early 1900. And at the same time, the iron, the bow windows also that we see up there. So it's what the Champs-Elysées is an image of our past. It's also an image of our future, and the best we have to offer in the city.
Yeah.
So this was oops. So
Bit windy.
Yeah, the wind's coming back. So we're trying to protect the mic. That's the most important.
It's the important part. Yeah.
So we hope you guys have had a good time with Manuel, who
And our wonderful host Bertrand.
we've been working together for 6 years.
Yes.
I remember you starting as a young guide,
yes.
passionate young guide who was making everybody laugh at every tour. So
That has changed. I have become unfunny apparently.
Manuel, now you specialize in tours in Paris, but also outside. You go to Versailles pretty often.
Absolutely. Remember, with my friend Paris, for example, we go to Versailles. One of the things we do now, we try to do new castles. That would be great. One day we could do another castle, the Fontainebleau, for example. And this is why earlier we had the question about unknown places. One of the things I love doing, for example, is the Pantheon, the National Pantheon, which I think is a quite incredible building. So yeah, we specialize a lot in Paris, but we try to do more in the Paris region. And I obviously love Rome, so I worked over there, I got it over there. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's important, guys, because obviously with the pandemic and all of this, the closure of the borders, etc., we can't do our regular job, which is to give tours to you guys. So that we try to do our best every Saturday in Paris. And so it was very nice to have you all see us. Don't forget that you can tip your guide. The house is stay afloat for the season. Which
Maybe get a haircut.
Maybe get a haircut. Yeah.
Anyone.
And the rest of the week we are actually preparing the second phase, the future of my private Paris, which is going to be more of a teamwork, including guides like Manuel and others to join us in and be partners in the company. And so we will develop plenty of new tours. For the last few years, we have had many great tours, but it takes mostly the classics. And so this summer we're going to work hard on opening our portfolio and designing tours in places that are less famous, but are dear to us.
Absolutely.
And so that is something that we are really looking forward to.
And this is something, if you have any suggestions about that, if there's places you think that are not visited often enough and you'd like to see and you've never encountered on sites like that or whatever, please tell us. If there's things you guys would like to visit and you think are missing in like the tours that are offered in Paris, for example, we'd love to hear your opinion about that. Also, if you guys have any questions, please ask.
We'll answer in the comments.
Absolutely.
So good night for
those of you that are
east to us. Thank you for letting us know that the sound was not working at the beginning, because we could have we could have done the whole tour.
Yeah, just like talking
No,
to each other. I know you already. I don't know this. Yeah.
Good morning for those who are west of us.
Very west of us.
This was Manu and Bertrand from My Private Paris in Paris, up on the Arc of Triomphe, down the Champs-Elysées for our Saturday live
Saturday
tour.
stroll. Thank you very much. Have a
See
good
you
one,
next
guys.
week.
Take care.
Bye bye, guys.
Bye.